Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coach's Corner today. Where are my sound effects? Come on, sound effects. Can somebody just
Hey,
clap while I look them? There you go. You're already in sequence.
there you go.
Yay. I think they removed them, probably because I used them too much. So, wow.
Mm,
Today we're going to, hey, there you go. All
there we
right.
go.
Welcome to Coach's Corner. So, first off, before we start, happy late Valentine's Day or belated Valentine's Day, if you will, for those that celebrate. Even if you don't have a significant other, love yourself,
That's right.
always love yourself. And, speaking of love, wow, we're going to get into some amazing topics today. And I'm sure it's going to be very special. Speaking of special, I'm here with my amazing special colleagues as well that always express this material very sincerely. And, I'm excited to talk about this particular topic because we've been talking about amazing books, amazing content, teachers, leaders, that changed this world. And speaking of world, wow, what we're talking about today is essential to understand and to apply. So my name is Jamel Matias. I'm a certified mindset success coach / business consultant. I'm in the Maryland area. I'm the founder of Believe in the Unseen Consulting. And my purpose is to reveal the hidden potential that's already within you and guide you to your truest desires. So I work with individuals, businesses, business owners, whoever has that dream that, basically believes in that goal in their higher selves, and that goal is readily available for you. And I help guide you to that milestone. So what we're talking about today, before I was about to jump right in, right? I'll pass it to my amazing colleague, Lou.
Oh, thank you, Jamel. Good morning. Good morning, Paul. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Coach's Corner. I am super excited about this topic that we'll be diving into this week. But my name is Lou Perica. I am a success mindset mentor and founder of Prosperous Results. And I work with women who have that quiet pull towards something more in their life, but at the same time, they can feel a little stuck or unclear about what their next chapter is. And through conversations and helping you expand your awareness, I help shift their perspective, strengthen their self leadership, and move toward the life that they know that they're meant for. I just wanted to say that today, I was speaking with my colleagues. I'm so excited to talk about the universal laws because during these next few weeks, we're not just going to be sharing or teaching the laws, but we're actually opening a doorway to greater awareness of how everything works. And these laws are rarely talked about. That's why I'm very excited to be presenting them in the next few weeks. But I will pass it over to my amazing colleague, Paul.
Thank you, Lou, and thank you, Jamel. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Paul Wooters. I'm in the Burlington, Ontario, Canada, and I'm also a success mindset mentor, and I am a director of the Leadership and Development Department at the World Life Education Center in Oakville. And what I do is I help people achieve their most elusive personal and professional goals, people from all walks of life, and help them to design and create the life that they truly want and deserve, to unlock your potential, to be the person that you can be, to, as I like to say, live to your greatest possibilities. And I'm going to pass it back to our amazing host, Jamel.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Lou. This is going to be fantastic. Had to boost some energy here because what we're talking about today, Lou mentioned it. Universal laws, and thank you to Lou for just having this idea to talk about these in depth because a lot of people know about them. They heard different things about them. They feel that they're there, but a lot of people don't really understand them. And I put in my description post here that you can learn about universal laws, right? You can think about them, you can learn a couple things about them, and you can apply them, right? You can apply the knowledge that you have, and you can also totally ignore them. But what's special, you can never alter them, and they're always there. So, whether you understand it or not, or believe it or not, have an open mind to allow something that may have been speaking to you for a long time to kind of help you out. And that's why we're here to talk about this amazing 12. We're going through 12 universal laws. So we're going pretty in depth here. But, let's start with a foundational one that, to be honest, I wasn't very familiar with logically, but on a subconscious level, I was very familiar with. And what that law is called, the law of divine oneness. Now, when we're talking about spirituality, and energy, there's two different ways of explaining in our human so-called existence, right? It's either science or theology. So have an open mind. It doesn't matter what religious background you come from, or if you just believe in science, it's kind of different ways of explaining the same thing. Okay. So what in the world is the law of divine oneness? The law of divine oneness, ladies and gentlemen. I love this little part here that I took a note. It said the smallest subatomic particle to the largest galaxy is intricately connected and dependent on each other. You know how small a subatomic particle is?
No.
It's smaller than a dust molecule. So you need this super big, I don't know what they call this thing. Anyway, like what is those things called?
Microscope?
Yeah, but there's a deeper, bigger one. But anyway, a big microscope, a very powerful one to see those type of things. So in the largest galaxy you can imagine, right? Now we're talking like, what's that guy's name? The Star Trek guy. He had a theory of the world being flat still, and he got kind of, anyway.
I was not a Trekkie, so I can't help
it. Okay. But imagine, right? Most of us can just imagine our galaxy. We're talking about the largest galaxy, and the smallest thing you can imagine, right, is connected, right? And it says there's no separation between any aspect of existence, and that everything is part of a unified universal whole. Wow. So subconsciously, I had a feeling that we're not separate. And in my studies, in my journey, I realized someone mentioned they found the same matter on other planets and in the moon that are in human beings. Now we're talking about the science part, right? Like carbon, whatever, I don't know. I was like, wow, that's so fascinating. So they're finding stuff way out in space that's even in our bodies. And that's on a science level telling you that there is nothing separate. And on a spiritual level, listen to that. There's no separation between any aspect of existence. So now we're talking about consciousness. Now I'm here, Neville, because he says consciousness. We talked about that in our feeling is the secret. The law and its operation, I believe, was the title of that chapter. So that's consciousness, how nothing is separate, the unseen and the seen. And that's where, my thought process connects with the law of divine oneness. This is going to be a great conversation because I'm sure Lou is busting at the seams to, share this knowledge because it's very vital. And for the viewers that are here live, feel free to interact, engage, and, ask some questions or drop some comments because you're a part of this. You're not separate from what we're sharing here. So I'll stop there.
I'm going to jump in because I know that Lou is the master here. Like she really knows this stuff. So I'm just going to hop on and just sort of underscore a little bit what Jamel said. And really interesting, Jamel said, here's the laws. You can study them, you can apply them or not apply them. They still exist. They still happen. Gravity exists whether you ignore it or not. You can walk off a building and fall down, and it's no different every day. Anyone, it doesn't matter. It would always be there. It's not like some days it's there and some days it's not. So it's when you work with the laws that you can really, the interesting thing is when you learn laws and you work with them, that's how you can create, anything you want, really. But the law of divine oneness is, as Jamel said, states that everything is connected, right? So every thought is energy. Thought, action, emotion, and intention, it doesn't influence just the individual, but the collective whole, right? There's no separation. There's only different expressions of the same thing, right? So as Jamel said, we're all connected, but it's just different expressions. We're all created from the same energy, the same spirit. Spirit is everywhere. If you're speaking from science point of view, energy is everywhere. There's nowhere that energy is not. There's nowhere that spirit is not. Spirit is omnipresent. So it's equally present at all places at the same time. So I think like what this law teaches is that what you do to yourself, you do to the whole, and what you do to the whole, you ultimately do to yourself. So when we begin with this, the law of divine oneness, it's really establishing the foundation that reality, it isn't fragmented, it's unified. It's unified. And I'm going to pass it on to Lou to build on that.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jamel. So let me just go back. Why I was excited to bring about the universal laws, and we're going to be covering 12, and they're immutable. But what excited me when I started to learn about them, because I didn't even know about them. I've heard about the law of cause and effect. I heard about the law of attraction, but I really never gave it any thought. And when I started to study, and I don't mean I go in depth, but when I started to study the laws, I understood that everything operates by these principles. So it's not just me. It's not just Jamel. It's not just Paul. It's not just Alicia. And hi, Alicia, we miss you. Safe travels. But it's everyone. And we all know about the law of gravity, as Paul mentioned. We learned that when we were babies. We learned it, we understand it because we experience it. So if we were to jump off a building, we don't have to experience that, but we all understand, and there's a knowing that there's a danger there and that we can all hurt ourselves. And right now, we're all here, we're planted in our seats or wherever you are, we're not all floating around. So the law of gravity seems and appears very obvious to everyone. But when we touch upon these other laws that you may not even be aware of, you're going to see that everything is connected. Everything is energy in motion, and we are always attracting according to our dominant vibration. And you are going to see the patterns and the times, you think, why does this keep happening? Why does this feel off? Why does this feel heavy? Why do certain people attract good things while other people attract not so terrific things? And it's not because, just like the law of gravity, there's not some capricious God saying, oh, I like that person. No, not you. You were born on the other side of the tracks. Yeah, let's let this person float down to the ground. That one, they're going to go straight down off the building. Forget that. It doesn't work that way. And when you start to, as we delve into these laws, it's going to be so much clearer for you that if one person can achieve success, everyone can, because it's all by law. It's all principles, but no one's teaching you that. That's why we're very passionate about being here and bringing this information to you, because it just makes life easier. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want, not only for themselves, but to be able to teach it to your children? So you don't have to know these laws inside and out, but just be aware of them. Be aware that everything operates by law. So when you're having an off day, you can kind of reflect, but not blame yourself, but understand that you are part of it. You are part of the creation. That takes a lot of pressure off of yourself. That takes a lot of self-doubt and self-blame, and understand, okay, everything works by law, and I have the ability to shift my outcomes. So today is about the law of divine oneness. And science tells us that everything is energy. Everything, we're all connected. What does that mean? Well, me, Jamel, and Paul are connected, but we're also connected to the chair we're sitting on. We're also connected to the tree outside my window. We're also connected to the rock in the garden, and even the tires on my car. It's all the same fundamental substance. It's just organized differently. And I think back to when we were studying Science of Getting Rich, where Wallace D. Wattles talks about this thinking stuff, right? This thinking stuff. And as Jamel was talking about, as we were studying the law of divine oneness, all is mind. The universe is mental. In essence, this law asserts that everything in the universe, from the tangible to the intangible, is a product of the mind. We learned from Bob. I thought we all had different minds, so to speak, but there's really only one mind, just like there's only one sun. But we all have like our own individualized mind, so we can all individually create. But we're all working with the same substance and the same power. And when you start to tap into these laws, and again, you don't have to go into depth, but there's something that for me, and I'm going to speak for my colleagues, it just helps you relax. It knows that you don't carry this world on your shoulders, but you are part of it, and you are creating part of it. So I just wanted to share that part. Jamel?
Wow. we're just gonna, give the microphone to Lou here
Let
for
that land.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Wow. This particular law is so powerful, because if you look at like quantum physics and advanced science, and even deep spiritual teaching, it's all kind of saying the same thing in different ways. And what's really powerful about this first law, it says, when a certain number, this is so good because I like this part, when a certain number of people come together and they choose at a moment in time to create a precise emotion in their hearts, that emotion literally can intentionally influence the very fields that sustain the life on planet Earth. Wow. So this gives you like an idea of our abilities as human beings, right? That's what masterminding is. Yeah. Right? And guess what you've been experiencing every time you tune into Coach's Corner? What I just explained. Yeah. This is a form of masterminding. When two minds or more come together for a common cause in the same energy, right? So, and I remember reading this somewhere as well. This might kind of go over some people's heads, but I don't mind saying it. In a book, one of my favorite books, Conversations with God.
I'm reading that now. Again.
I think this was book 3 where he's talking about highly evolved beings.
Yes. Hebs. Yeah.
So you remember that. Highly evolved beings. So these are beings that, basically are more evolved than our civilization. And they're able to come together to control the weather with their consciousness and their thoughts and their feelings. I was like, wow. I'm very into sci-fi and all that stuff. So I've seen it before in sci-fi, but to hear it in that way, I was like, oh, this is that law. Or maybe sci-fi got that idea through this law, right? Like, where did that come from? Where do ideas come from? It comes from everything, consciousness, right? Listen to that, the law of divine oneness. So there's nothing separate. So ideas come from this oneness. So, and look at Albert Einstein, right? We have all these examples of great scientists and people that have changed everything. The theory of relativity, how energy is basically, it's interconnected, right? Remember, Bob, we literally live in an ocean of motion, right? So that's what this law is. It's connected to, it's interconnected, and it's never separate. And I took a note here about how people think it's separate. A human being is a part of the whole. So like Lou mentioned, right? You're never separate from the whole unless you have lack of knowing, which is ignorance, right? Ignorance of this law. So, and also, I remember Wallace Wattles talking about gratitude. He says the only way you can separate yourself from the source is lack of gratitude. I was like, whoa, that's huge. So listen to that. A human being is a part of the whole. The universe, a part limited in time and space. Now, here we go. Time is an illusion. It really is. And this is where Neville talks about the fourth dimension, right? Time, we make up the time. It's linear, so we can perceive experience, right? We have to kind of see it that way. Like if you look at science, remember in the movie Interstellar, they were expressing the theory that when you move fast enough from point A to point B, time tends to slow down. And it can, if you move even quick enough, time can stop. So I forgot what law that is, but basically time is the illusion. And we perceive it as a linear thing. Oh, this happened and that happened. It's all happening now.
Now, yeah.
And forever, right? And it's very hard concept for a lot of people to grasp. I like to think about it every day. I'm like, wow, I'm a part of all this. So a human being is part of the whole, and the universe, basically a part limited in time and space. So people experience oneself. You think you just have these feelings. You think you just have these thoughts. Even in my meditation, it talked about how some people experience sadness and certain things in their life, and you're not the only one feeling that exact feeling at that time. There's millions of people feeling that same feeling, right? So people experience oneself, their thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest. It feels like you're separate. It's a kind of optical delusion, right, of consciousness. But for one, we're actually choosing a journey of that consciousness, of that oneness to experience every day. And this is why mentorship's important, because who thinks about this, right? And also, you think you're separate than what you're achieving in your life and your results. I talked to somebody a couple days ago, he's going through a tough time. Everything in your life is connected. You are the cause and everything is an effect. Why is that? Because you're part of this law of divine oneness. Your money that you have, the success that you have in your business, the things you don't do, right? All results. By their fruits you shall know them. And the fruit is part of that oneness. It's divine. And you're actually birthing your whatever that you're creating in your life. You're giving birth to your results, and the results will tell you what's happening on the inside. So it's amazing really thinking about this concept, because understanding it, then you start seeing differently. Your awareness raises. You know that you're not separate from one person and the other, and you're not separate from, your future. So I'll stop there. I know I shared a lot. It was profound when you really think about this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, it is profound, and people are like, you're trying to think, oh my gosh, like trying to get my head around this. If you're someone that's been following us, you're going to try and like sort of simplify what Jamel said. So I mean, it's easy because we're always, greatly influenced by the physical world, right? But it's easy if you look out to see at the physical level, or like everything at the physical level, it seems maybe it's disconnected, but everything is connected to the energy, mental, and spiritual level. And things that we've talked about before is that your thoughts influence your feelings, and your feelings influence your actions, your behavior, and your actions, and your actions influence others. Now, others influence the environment you live in. So what the law is doing, it reveals that individual consciousness participates in shaping the collective reality. So you're just not in reality. You are an active participant in the creation of that reality. So that means that, it's shifting the responsible inward to you. So if everything is connected, then your external results are connected to your inner state. So your self-image, I talked about this yesterday at a talk, but your self-image influences how others perceive and respond to you. And your beliefs influence your decisions, and your decisions influence your outcomes. So there's a common principle is change within comes before changes without. So you're not separate from your results. You are directly connected to them.
Oh, so good. And it's so funny because sometimes I think, oh, is this stuff, are we going too deep? But I realize if you've been following us, you realize you have been learning all along. What I just wanted to touch upon what Jamel mentioned about Hebs, right? Higher evolved beings. When I read that in the book, I think it says, I'm paraphrasing, but something like, why would people hurt one another? Because ultimately you're hurting yourself. And I was like, oh, a higher evolved being not only understands, but the conceptual belief in that, but experientially, they know if I hurt someone else, I'm hurting myself, because we are all connected. I wanted to share an example that I printed out, and I think this we'll put it in a way that most people can grasp and relate to. So we tend to think of ourselves as isolated individuals, right? Well, this is my problem. This is what's going on. And yes, it's part of it. But what if you thought of yourself more like waves in the ocean? A wave looks separate for a moment. It has shape, it moves independently, but it never leaves the ocean. And within that ocean, I want you to think like this. We function, each one of us function like living antennas. All right. We are constantly transmitting and receiving information, vibration, frequency. Every thought we hold, every emotion that we have, every belief that we embody, we are broadcasting it into this field. And I always like the way that, what's his name? I just mentioned his name, this thinking stuff. I love that. I love thinking of the field as this thinking stuff. Um, so, because there is no separation, we're also receiving from that same field. So, all of our thoughts are going into this field, and we are receiving back the state of vibration that we believe ourselves to be, that identity. This is where we get ideas. Sometimes when we shift our perspective, we see something differently. We're actually broadcasting something different, and we start seeing things differently. But we don't just live in an environment, we participate in it. So I want to give you this little example. A family dinner. I think we can all relate to this. One person has not had such a terrific day. They're kind of irritated. They've had a lousy day. And they're thinking in their mind, they're having a conversation in their mind. No one helps me. No one, I got to do everything by myself. I don't get any help. They may not be saying it aloud, but it's in their head. And their internal antenna is broadcasting frustration. So when they walk into the family dinner, they go to sit down, their tone is much sharper. Their shoulders are tightened and their energy is shifting. Others, maybe not consciously, but they are picking up on that signal, right? We all know when someone walks into a room and they're not in a great mood, they don't have to say anything. You see it in their face, you see it in how they walk, you see it through their eyes, right? So we at the table, just for an example, we kind of get in defense mode. You're already preparing because this person has brought in an energy, right? And we tend to mirror that tension. Maybe the conversation isn't as light as it typically is. We're kind of careful about what we're saying, right? So now the whole room feels heavy, but no one even said a word at the beginning, right? But you can have that same person had the same crappy day, right? But before they come into the house, they pause. They pause in the driveway and they're going to choose not to bring this negative energy, if you will, into the house. They're going to choose calmness and steadiness. And they're going to make a decision when I walk into the house, I'm going to be pleasant, calm, and grounded. Now their antenna is transmitting a different energy. So when they walk in the room, they're a little bit softer than they would have been before. They listen more intently, and the atmosphere shifts. So the people around will respond to that energy. So this is why we're helping create the signal within. So not only the person that's walking into the room that maybe had not such a terrific day, they can go in that room to the dining room table with that energy, or they can make a choice and a decision prior to. So however they enter the room will affect the room itself. That's just one family. There are 8 billion people in this world. So collectively, like Paul was saying, we are shaping not just our environment, but collectively the world environment, the world we live in. Wars aren't caused by one person. One person cannot create a war. It's collectively gaining energy from people that either are fearful, they believe in some, whatever. It's collectively. So this has us be more mindful of how we show up in the world. But I didn't know this. I didn't know this until I started to learn and then embody. And again, it took a lot of weight off of my shoulders. And it helped me be a better person because I understand. Now, is it on top of my mind all the time? No. I still have patterns. I'm still aware, but I'm aware of my patterns. But when I can pause, take a deep breath, I can ground myself. I can lead myself calmly because I know I am part of the whole. So what I choose to bring to the table is love. I choose to bring to the table compassion, some empathy, some understanding, not be part of the. But I used to be. Let me be clear. I used to be. Because, like Bob says, ignorance is the cause of everything. When you don't understand something, it's because of ignorance. And it's really what that means is you're not aware. I think Oprah used to say, if you knew better, you would do better. So this is what we're here to help people to know better and do better. So what I just shared with you is really, it is about the law of divine oneness. It's also about the law of vibration and about the law of attraction. So I think these are the 3 laws we're going to be covering just within this particular session.
Wow. So good, Lou. So good. And I have a feeling there'll be a part 2 because, these 3, I don't know. We'll talk about that, But the key thing is, and I love that quote, in order to, what you mentioned, Oprah, what is the quote again, Lou?
Oh, if you knew better, you would do better.
Thank you. If you knew better, you will do better. But I want to rephrase that. Sorry, Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
If you knew better, you would be better. And
Yes.
being is all about what we're sharing here. What are you being in this law of divine oneness? The doing is a natural expression of that oneness, which is your subconscious. So, with what we're sharing here is extremely powerful to understand, right? And I know we can probably talk to the end of the year about it, but let this kind of really give you some type of enlightenment, some type of insight, because knowing that you are not separate from anything or anyone is essential. And when we say ignorance, it doesn't mean you're dumb. You're extremely intelligent. You're very smart. And it just means that you're unaware of the laws of our being, right? And when you understand this and apply it every day, you're calm. You know that, I still learn about it. And the more I'm reminded of it, I'm like, wow, this was here the whole time. It was here the whole time. And that reminds me of that quote, the best things in life are free.
Mhm.
So you don't have to pay to be a part of this law of divine oneness, right? Well, you're paying when you don't understand it and you're not aware of it and you desire growth. You're paying intangibly, right? By remaining at a lower version of yourself, right? That's really important. So I took a few notes here. Why did I do this? The prompter is way too fast. So there is a connection between our emotions, like Lou was mentioning, our thoughts, and physical well-being. So really think about that. Your thoughts are always the top part, right? That's where you get thoughts from oneness. That's your intuition. Energy just is. It's just pure energy. And we mold that energy with our thoughts, or basically what thoughts we choose to emphasize. And what you're thinking dictates your vibrational state. That's your emotion, what you're feeling, and your physical well-being. So the physical is connected to the non-physical. Bob always said there's no demarcation from levels of frequencies. So that oneness is there and you feel it, right? So there's a connection between our thoughts, our emotions, and physical well-being, emphasizing they influence the world around us. So I always love that Thomas Troward, my mind is the center of divine operation. I always love that because it's your center. We all have a connection to this mind. You can never be separate from it. And a lot of people confuse the mind from the brain, right? Oh, that I have a brain. Well, you're also connected to the mind, and you can never be separate from it. So my mind is the divine operation, the center of divine op. So you're creating your physical world with this oneness. And guess what? It says, and your physical well-being. So you're at ease when you understand this. When you're learning more about these laws and who you are and how you can use these laws to your benefit, apply them, you're at ease, right? And I was going to do a post today about this, the law of polarity, but this kind of falls into that. So if you don't understand these laws, right, it's fine. You're still operating within them. If you totally disregard what we're saying, that's fine too. You're still part of it. You can't break free from this, right? You can, I mean, even if you don't believe anything, it's there, right? And I'm not saying you have to believe in anything, what we're sharing, but we're here to help you with this, sincerely. So when your well-being, when you're thinking negative thoughts, you have negative feelings, and the body, consistent negative feelings over time, you're creating dis-ease in your body. It's a negative vibration, a low vibration. And you wonder why you're getting colds all the time, or you're getting fevers, or you're achy, or whatever. It's because of your thinking. So, and what's interesting, when you're low vibration, your well-being, you're thinking all these negative thoughts, you have this negative vibration, you're getting sick. Guess what you're creating in your life, in the world around you? More negative things to match that frequency that you're creating. My mind is the center of divine operation. Remember that, because every day you have that moment, and the moment is now, not tomorrow. It's now what you do with that gift, that awareness. So speaking of awareness, I like this. It said success comes when people act together. So when people act together for a common cause, or, in a creative way, this is it reminds me of when Bob Proctor talks about corporate culture or group culture, right? I noticed I moved a lot. I grew up in a military family. So everywhere we went, there's different language, like verbiage and slang and clothes and food. There are different little corporate pockets at group culture, right? So the environment is different here and different there. You go here to the West Coast, East Coast, you go to the South, you go overseas, it's just different, right?
Wow.
So guess what? All of that is still part of the divine oneness. So it said, failure tends to happen when it happens alone. A major success comes when people act together. Failure tend to happen alone. I was like, wow. And this is when people, they get so used to their comfort zone, and their negative and limiting beliefs are dictating their future and how they see the world and how they see themselves. And they kind of separate themselves from the desire that they want. It's very interesting when you're operating alone. So, and lastly, how do you apply this? So empathy and compassion for others, right? Empathy and compassion for others. This is how you're starting to create rather than letting the outside world create you. In this law of divine oneness, having empathy, compassion for others, seeing others as yourself, this just raises your awareness even more. And what you're doing is actually leaving everyone with the impression of increase, because you understand that there is nothing separate from one person to the next, from one thing to the next. We're all made of the same stuff. And when you're giving to another in a positive manner, you're actually increasing yourself. So, and it works in reverse as well, right? If you're being mean to someone or you're judging someone, you're subtracting from yourself. So that was something I wanted to mention there as well. Thank you.
I'm taking down notes, listening to what you guys were saying, and I love what Jamel said. Success comes when people act together. And I want to backtrack a little bit on something, the example that Lou gave about, someone coming to dinner and they've had a, lousy day and they're carrying this negative energy. And, I read somewhere, there's this emotional contagion. So my emotional state affects others, right? Calm affects calm, confidence, affects trust, creates trust, fear creates hesitation. So she's an example. I have a real life example. So I coach young athletes. So regardless of what's happened to me today, when I drive to practice, when I sit in the parking lot before I go in, like I am going to dictate as the coach, I'm going to dictate like the environment. Like these kids are coming from school, these kids are coming to diving, they want it, they're looking forward to. Some kids are a little bit nervous about what's going to happen today, a little bit scared. So I have to have that empathy. I can't come in with a bad mood or yelling or snapping at kids and create this environment where, no one's going to have success, because everyone's going to be like, scared or nervous or like, what's up with the coach or anything like that. So I have to just put everything at the door, leave everything at the door, and come in and create this great learning environment for the kids. And the same thing happens if I see a kid come in and they're slumpy shoulders. Oh, what's wrong? Okay, what's wrong? Okay, what's wrong? Oh, yeah, I had the science test today. It was like really bad. So you know what? The science test happened earlier. If you want to talk about your science test later, I'll talk to you about it after practice. You know what? Let's think about the practice right now. Let's think about what you have to do next. And so, I'm really conscious of that, of the fact that, hey, I am going to bring the energy I bring is going to determine the environment and what these kids get out of it and what they go home, how they go home feeling. Like, that's huge. I don't know how much of an impact that day might have, today might have on that person. It could be a turning point for something, right? So it really, really matters. So you think of, a leader entering a room, right? If they enter with like uncertainty, then, well, the room feels it, just like Lou was saying, that person coming to the dinner party. But if they enter, they're grounded and they're, feel confident, well, the whole room aligns with that feeling. So, I can get up and do a talk. Luke can get up and do a talk, Jamel. And so what they're bringing, right, if they're having a class, doing a master class, how they enter the room, how they enter the physical space. And the whole room is going to align, even though nothing physical actually was exchanged, right? But everything changes. And Jamel pointed that out too. Like he moved from place to place to place. Everything changes, but right? But even though nothing maybe was exchanged, but that whole culture, that whole mindset, right? But that's oneness in action, right? The internal state influences the collective environment around. So I think, what it's teaching is that we're not victims of external conditions. We are participants in creating our own experiences. And your outer world and your inner world are connected. So this shifts the question, okay, from why is this happening to me to what within me is participating in creating this, and what can I change? What can I change? Lou.
Yeah, so good. And, I have to. I just have to. Um, so we are an ocean. We are the ocean in a drop. And I remember reading on Power of Awareness. I think it's in the first chapter, um, when Neville is talking about I am. And that just went over my head. I had to read that over and over, but not just read that chapter, but I had to experience life more before I could have an understanding of the I am. And what I loved is what he said in there is, you may forget who you are, you may forget what you are, you may forget where you are, but you can never forget that you are. And that's what we are. We are the awareness. We are pure awareness, the I am. And I was doing some meditating the other day, and I was saying some affirmations, but I stopped, and after saying I am, da 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 da, I just stopped at I am. And I said it slowly, pause, said it slowly again, pause. So I did this, a few times. I am. That is that is consciousness. That is awareness, but it's undefined. So that's what we are. And the human experience brings the definition. So if I say, and this awareness isn't, or this divine oneness, it's not like Jamel was mentioning, he moved from place to place, and I can only imagine what amazing experiences, challenging and amazing at the same time. But this oneness is not American, it's not Asian, it's not African, it just is. This isness. That's why you'll often hear us say everything just is. It's this isness, this I amness. And until you put something after I am, now you're defining that awareness, that consciousness. You're shaping and molding. So this is why, to become mindful of what we say, I am whatever, sick, I am tired, I am exhausted, I am whatever it may be, because then we've all heard, I am that I am. So you're putting it out there and then you're affirming it. But when you just say, I am, with nothing attached to it, you get this sense of, for me, I get the sense and the feeling of oneness. I feel that connection because I'm not putting any definition after it. I'm just saying, I am. And that for me, I'm going to create a meditation for myself built around that. But it was such a great aha moment. I've studied it, I understand it, but I was actually experiencing it without just saying I am, without putting anything after. And that's where Neville comes back to mind, where he says, you may forget who you are, what you are, and where you are, but you can never forget that you are. And that's awareness. Like, where do you see it? You can't touch it, you can't feel it. It's like a thought. You can't touch it, you can't feel it. Where is it located? Where is that thought located? And that's awareness, right? Jamel said with Thomas Troward, my mind is a center of divine operation. And Bob would always point out that one word, a, my mind is a center. In other words, it's kind of individualized within the greater. So that's what I wanted to wrap up with. And I too have a closing question, like Paul. If we are all connected and we are constantly transmitting and receiving within the same field, what signal are you contributing right now in your home, in your work, in your own mind? And is it aligned with the person you're choosing to become, who you truly wish to see yourself as you want to experience? Those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors must align. If not, you're out of alignment. Jamel?
I love it. I love it. Totally amazing. Wow, if your mind isn't blown by now, just wait till next episode. But no, seriously, Lou mentioned something very powerful there. We all did. If you're not aligned with the version that you're creating, the version of you with the results that you want and the life that you want, this is a clear example for you to get in touch with one of us. Because just hearing this and understanding it, it's great. This is just the beginning for you. And, it's different hearing it and then living it.
Mm-hmm.
And experiencing it, right? I always like relating it to food. I can explain the perfect dish that I made or my wife made or you made or anybody here made. And it tastes so good. It's sweet, but it's a bit spicy, but has great seasoning, a little salty, but not too salty. But what does that really taste like? Right? You can see a picture. I post my wife's beautiful meal she makes. I love you, babe. And she, you can see it, but everyone that sees it has a different, experience of how they think that would taste. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So the version of you is waiting for you. It is. And I know a lot of you watch our Coaches Corners, and thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. That's the beginning. It really is, because we're sharing knowledge that will be here long after we're gone in the physical. And maybe, in the non-physical, we'll still be part of these actually. So why not understand this knowledge and apply it while you're here and make the best life possible that you can in the time that you're gifted with. So our call links are in the comments or the description. And whatever platform you saw this on, just message us. Just watching from a distance doesn't change anything. You have to make a committed decision to become that version of you with the results that you desire. And where does desire come from? The oneness. It's oneness. It's actually the version of you that wants to exist. This is why you want certain things. You want to experience that lifestyle. You want to experience those things. You want that time for your family or that book or whatever, because it's seeking expression through you, that oneness. This is why you want that thing. But guess what? It's not separate from you. You actually have to choose it over and over. So we kind of touched on that today, and I'm sure we'll go deeper into the other universal laws. But this law right here, is a foundational law. It really is. And like I said at the beginning, I felt it, that what is feeling, that's a subconscious vibration. But I wasn't consciously aware of it. So again, reach out to us. This has been amazing. Always a pleasure speaking with my awesome colleagues here. And hopefully, this really helped you today. See you next time, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.